Mhm. Okay, so we are resuming now with this is the final Q&A session. And I'm going to have to answer questions briefly. And if there are long, complicated questions, I'm sorry, I'm probably going to have to put them aside. Okay, if someone has dreams indicating an event that happens the following day, is that an indication of some achievement in meditation? Not necessarily. I think some people, it can be due purely to chance, or some people just have innate psychic abilities, and maybe in some people it can be the result of meditation, but it isn't invariably an indication of achievement in meditation. Second question, in the death process, when someone gets the sign, etc., this is interesting, an important question. Is it possible to change the destination? If not, how far from this last point can someone act to move to a different destination of rebirth? Actually, you said if not, but it should be if so. Oh, I see. No, okay, I get the point. Yeah, probably in the final death process itself, I think it's not possible to change the destination. But this is what I've heard happens, that as people are going into the death process, not the final thought process, but coming into that process, maybe like an hour or a few hours before the death, sometimes they start to get glimpses of the destination that lies ahead. And then it's possible, this is what I've heard, through guidance from somebody else to change the consciousness in a way that will bring a change in the future destiny. And so then a different sign of destiny will appear. I remember it was something that when I was the editor for the Buddhist Publication Society, we had published a track on this in the Bodhi Leaf series by an Indian monk, Venerable Ratapala, who explained his own experience of being called to attend on somebody who was in the process of coming close to death. And that person was having frightful visions. And so Venerable Ratapal, if I remember, he kept on reminding that person, the dying person, of his good deeds, and maybe getting monks to recite blessing suttas for him and putting an image of the Buddha in front of him. And in this way, the bad signs that were appearing disappeared, and then a good sign appeared. And then apparently he passed away with a good sign of destiny. I don't remember the title of that booklet. It's probably available over the internet, but I don't remember the title. I'm sure that you have met many spiritually advanced practitioners, but have you met any enlightened people? And if you have, what can you tell us about this experience? Yeah, this is not really so directly relevant to our retreat. I'm sorry. We have to really keep the questions relevant to the retreat. Okay, can you say more about doubt? Is doubting the Buddha's enlightenment the same as doubting my own ability to become enlightened? How is doubt different from investigation to get to the truth? Could questioning the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha be justified under any circumstance? I'd say what's meant by doubt is the inability to trust the Buddha as an enlightened teacher, a fully enlightened teacher, and to doubt the efficacy of the path of practice as a means to liberation, and maybe also to doubt the truth of the fundamental principles of the Buddha's teaching. I mean, there are some teachings, like what are the causes for rebirth as a cloud deity, for a flower deity. Maybe we'll have doubts about that, but that won't be an obstruction. But like doubting the Four Noble Truths, doubting dependent origination, doubting the three marks of existence. Okay, so that would be the meaning of doubt. And I don't think it's the same as doubting one's own ability to become enlightened. One should, but I say if one doubts one's own ability, that is also an obstructive doubt. So you also always have to have confidence that one has the potential to become enlightened, even if it's not going to occur in this life, but we always have that potential. And so when you have the confidence in the path, then you commit yourself to the practice, determining however many lives it will take, I'm going to walk this path to the end. And then doubt, I say, is certainly it's different from investigating to get to the truth. So there's a kind of critical doubt, which is the doubt that motivates one to investigate the teachings. So things you're not clear about, you want to understand more clearly. And so then you study and practice in order to get to the truth. And so in that sense, certainly questioning the Dhamma is justified as a means to encourage oneself to study more, to learn more, in order to understand more. Okay, the escape route, okay. The person has pasted a passage from a sutta called the Upanisa Sutta. And he says, please comment on this, especially on the turning point of faith. So this sutta goes first through the first 11 links of dependent origination up to birth, and then it goes from birth to suffering, then from suffering to faith, from faith to joy, from joy to rapture, then to serenity, then to happiness, then to concentration, then from concentration to the knowledge and vision of things as they are, from the knowledge and vision of things as they are to turning away or dispassion, then from dispassion to liberation, then from liberation to the knowledge of liberation. So this is in the Samyutta Nikaya, this is chapter 12, sutta number 23. He asked me to comment on this, but actually in 1980 I wrote a booklet about this sutta, and you could find it on the internet if you look for my name and the title, Transcendental Dependent Origination. And so there's a whole essay on the sutta. Okay, this is getting a bit complicated. Okay, we know that every citta is accompanied by the cetasika of volition, but are there degrees of volition in cittas and behavior? And does this correspond to karmic weight? I guess by degrees of volition, let's say, are there differences in the karmic weight of the volition in a citta? Yes, there can be. Many variations in the weight of the volition or the strength of the volition in a citta. And this corresponds, it does correspond partly to this distinction of prompted and unprompted. So if I do a deed because I'm prompted by others say, come, you should practice giving, it's good. And then I'm reluctant to do it, but I do it with some regrets. Okay, then the volition of giving there is weak, or we could say that's an inferior volition of giving, where if I really understand for myself the true benefits of giving, and I find delight in giving, and then I give happily and willingly, then the volition is much stronger. Yeah, and so there are great varieties in the strength of the volition in the cittas. Okay, second question. The object and type of citta are the same for rebirth linking and the death citta. Do they also have the exact same composition of chaitasikas? In the chocolate box analogy, is it an assortment put in a new box? Or could you maybe trade up a caramel chocolate for a mint chocolate between the death and rebirth linking? If I remember correctly, the composition of chaitasikas and the rebirth linking, bhavanga and death consciousnesses are all the same. If my memory is correct, though I haven't looked into this in some time. But one could look, I think, in chapter 2 in the comprehensive manual, and it might have something about that. No, I think because the death and rebirth consciousnesses are brought in only in chapter 3. Anyway, you look in the comprehensive manual. I'm pretty sure they're the same, but I'm not absolutely sure. And third question, when did the visual wheel get attached to this teaching? The teaching of the 12 factors? Actually, originally, I don't think one finds it in the Theravada tradition up till maybe very recent times, where they might have taken it in newly constructed monasteries. But it comes, we find it in the Tibetan tradition, and I think it comes into Tibetan Buddhism because the source might be the Vinaya of the Mula, that's the disciplinary collection of the Mula Sarvastivada school. That is the form of Vinaya, or the Vinaya Pitaka, which is followed in Tibetan Buddhism. And I think that Vinaya, which is a rather late Vinaya with many, many stories, not in the Pali version, has a story in which the Buddha, after teaching dependent origination, instructs one of the monks with artistic ability to draw this diagram on the wall of the monastery, and then to appoint monks to explain dependent origination through the diagram, to explain it to visitors who come to the monastery. So it seems to be a late source, which then spread to Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, some questions on karma. Does non-action, the failure to respond to a person's request for help or to a situation where help is needed, create negative karma? I'd say certainly the case, because though you might say that's non-action, but actually there is a mental action there. Say you see somebody in need of help, and then you think, I'm busy. Okay, somebody is maybe has collapsed on the street and everybody is passing by, not doing anything like to call the police or to call the 911 to get some emergency help. So that is it's a mental karma of closing the mind and refusing to give the help. So it's certainly is creating negative karma. Okay, what would the Buddha's position be on a physician-assisted suicide for extreme medical conditions? And what would the impact of taking such action be on one's karma and rebirth? These are questions that I have to say go beyond my sphere of expertise. And they're very delicate questions where there can be a lot of arguments on both sides of the issue. And what would the impact of taking such action be on one's karma and rebirth? Yeah, I just don't know the answers to that. Okay, if the effects of negative karma can be reversed or reduced in this life or the next, what actions can be taken to transform that karma? I'd say, okay, in the karmas, there are distinctions between certain karmas which are in a way fixed and invariable, that they have to produce their results, and other karmas which are not fixed in their capacity to produce their results. So these karmas can be transformed and there are various remedies that are proposed. Of course, the best remedy is always to do wholesome karma and then to dedicate this karma. One could do this as part of one's regular practice. Particularly what's done when we do like the veneration of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, we dedicate the act of veneration to warding off all obstructive karma from producing its effects. So what one can do, any kind of wholesome karma, like venerating the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Actually, there's a very beautiful verse by Buddhaghosa at the opening of the Vinaya commentary. Ichevam machanta namasaneyang namasamano ratanatayang yang punyabi sandang vipulang alatang tasanu bhavena hadantarayo. Because we used to recite this every day when I was at Island Hermitage. Ichevam bachanta namasaneyang. Yeah. Basically, I'll just say the idea. Through the wholesome karma acquired by the merit acquired by venerating the triple gem, most worthy of veneration, may all of my obstacles be destroyed. So you could do any kind of wholesome karma and then dedicate the merit, may all my obstacles be destroyed. And maybe very powerful karma for warding off harmful effects. I would say probably the metta meditation would be very powerful because you're generating the strongest unwholesome karma is that which inflicts harm and suffering on others, in which we've done probably all accumulated masses of that through the beginningless time. So if you generate the wish for the well-being and happiness of others through metta, then it's generating a strong counteractive karma. Okay. According to science and evolution, there was a time when there were no human beings. Does the Buddhist canon account for this anywhere? If not, the Dalai Lama has famously said, if science shows us certain things that may indicate Buddhist ideas are incorrect, then Buddhism must change. How can Buddhism account for the arising of human five aggregates in the context of evolution? And what significance can this have for future evolution and the arisal of other beings? Okay, with regard to the first question, okay, the Buddha's texts speak about this isn't really so directly related to dependent origination. I'm going to have to put aside questions that are not, first I take questions related to dependent origination, then if time allows, I'll take other questions. Okay. Okay, good. All 24 conditional relationships appear to be deterministic and definitive, like conditioning state relates to the conditioned state by leading to a destination for path condition. Well, this is a person who should be giving the class. And Chaitanya causes Chitas and Chaitasikas by the Sahajata Kama Pachaya. Are there any relationships that have some uncertainty, like a conditioning state causes conditioned state with 45% probability, or there is a 30% chance of active resultants arising from maturing karma? What is the role of uncertain knowledge in Abhidhamma philosophy? Is incomplete knowledge totally ignored as useless and only completely known aspects of the universe are promoted? I wouldn't say that the relationships in dependent origination are deterministic and definitive. Okay, even the path condition, which says that certain factors, which are called path factors, lead to a particular destination. But that just means that these factors have the tendency to lead to that destination. That's their nature, is to lead to that destination. But whether they'll lead to that destination or not depends on the operation of many other conditioning factors. So I would say that, I think we mentioned this yesterday, that dependent origination really involves multiple conditions and multiple effects, and these multiple conditions are always interacting with each other, in some cases canceling each other. One is canceling out another. In some cases, another is reinforcing another. So there's a great deal of, call it, indeterminism, indetermination in the operation of the conditions. So it's not the case. Only in very limited number of cases is there inevitability, particularly those strong karmas that have to produce their effects. Otherwise, there's a great deal of a large margin of uncertainty in the operation of the conditions. I can't give percentages because there's such a complex flowing together of such a multitude of conditions that probabilities can vary from, in the extreme cases where there's 100% certainty, all the ways, and then on the other extreme, 0% probability, and in between the whole range from 1 to 99%. Okay, this is more relating to the metta meditation. Okay, some say my religion is the only right religion, my path is the best path. Ideologies like these have caused enough bloodshed So I changed my metta meditation from one based on region to one based on religion. May all Catholics be well, may all Protestants be well, may all Sunni Muslims be well, may all Shia Muslims be well, may all Theravada Buddhists be well, may all Mahayana Buddhists be well, may all Yoga-vajra Buddhists, Yogacara, but that's a school, a sub-school of Mahayana Buddhism. Maybe she means, well, he or she means Vajrayana, that's the Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, so I was doing that meditation. Then a phone rang, and I lost track of the religion. I was radiating the metta towards, and by the time I remembered and started again, the car horn blew and I lost track again. And then I tried to remember, but then Bhante rang the bell. Is this metta meditation based on religion as effective as metta meditation based on region? I don't know, I haven't tried the religion-based metta meditation. But if it helps for you and it helps to generate the strong feeling of loving kindness, I don't see any problem with it. The internet is eroding the borders between regions, and I feel borders between exclusive religions have to be demolished to bring the entire humanity together. Would this metta meditation help? Well, I think doing the metta meditation might help one feel more open and compassionate towards followers of other religions. Whether it's going to help, I don't think that borders between religions will be demolished, and I don't think it's a good thing to demolish borders between religions, because different religions naturally have different perspectives and suit the needs of different people. You could say to demolish the hostilities between religions certainly is a good thing. And if everybody did the metta meditation, of course, that would help to reduce these hostilities between religions. So if you could promote metta meditation amongst followers of all the religions, it would be very good. But don't be too overly optimistic, because no, I'm serious, because these persistent tendencies towards exclusivism and hostility are very deeply ingrained in human nature. Okay, a good, straightforward, simple Abhidhamma question. Does the bhavanga change during the course of a lifetime, or does it remain the same throughout the life? It remains exactly the same. Take the microphone.
I'm sorry. I had a question because bhavanga seems coming up, and it seems to be like a predominant factor.
Yeah.
Because you cannot control it. It's in the substratum.
Yeah.
So, is there a meditation technique to
no,
address?
One can't change the bhavanga. The bhavanga remains the same throughout the course of life. But one doesn't have to be concerned about changing the bhavanga, because we can change our, you could say we can change our mind, the way the mind functions, through meditation and other practices. So somebody who, say, has a tendency towards anger and hatred, by doing the loving kindness meditation regularly, they can change that disposition towards anger and hatred towards one of love and kindness. Somebody who has a tendency to, say, to pride and arrogance, by doing the contemplation on the elements of the body, can reduce that pride and arrogance. Somebody who does the meditation, who's overcome by strong sexual desire, by doing the meditation on the nature of the body can reduce the sexual desire. Somebody who develops the insight meditation can overcome ignorance and gain wisdom. And so it can change the functioning qualities of the mind, but the bhavanga is there as a basis. It's always the same. Okay, I'm not sure that I understand this question. I heard existence being called habitual tendencies as emotional habits or patterns of behavior. I have not heard you mention that. Can you please comment on that? Also for birth, I heard the term birth of action to signify taken actions. I just don't understand the questions. Yeah, I explained the way existence is understood. Yeah, I'm not sure that I understand these questions, so I'll put this aside. How do you suggest practicing compassion when you feel like an outside force, the human or situation, anger you? You mean, how do you practice compassion when you feel that some other person or situation, yeah, I think that's the way. When you feel like some other person or a situation is making you angry, I guess that's the question. Yeah, well, if you're feeling angry, I think one shouldn't jump directly into the compassion meditation, but one has to do something to let the anger settle down. And for that, I think the best remedy is to turn to the breath meditation. And then while using the breath meditation as the foundation, and then sort of reflect back on the mind and observe the mind in a state of anger until the anger settles down. And once the anger has settled down and the mind has become calmer, then you can turn, and I suggest using more directly the loving kindness meditation at that point rather than the compassion meditation. Because the loving kindness meditation is for generating goodwill towards other people and other sentient beings. So when somebody is making you angry, you first want to generate goodwill to that person and to other people. And then it's when the goodwill or loving kindness becomes stronger, then you can reflect on those who are suffering, and then one generates the compassion based on the recognition of their suffering. How can ignorance and craving be roots of dependent origination, since there is no craving if there is no ignorance? Again, I'm not sure I understand the question. Of course, if there's no ignorance, there's no craving, but it's only for the arahat that there's no ignorance and no craving. But for ordinary beings, there's always ignorance, always craving, at least dormantly in the mind. And as long as there's ignorance and craving, there's dependent origination. Okay. Okay. So craving here is, well, tanha, of course that's just the Pali word, and we have vibhava tanha and bhava tanha. Okay, that's two. Clinging means wanting things not to change. So can you have clinging to vibhava tanha, true or false? Can you have clinging to vibhava tanha? Or clinging to dislike? Certainly you could have clinging to dislike. Clinging to vibhava tanha? I would assume so, but I'm not so sure. Vibhava tanha is the, craving for non-existence, for personal annihilation. So I say if one clings to that desire, then there's a clinging to vibhava tanha. See, I saw was there some other questions put up? Okay. I have a question about the link. The link between contact and feeling. As the javana process occurs before registration at the mind door, where, as I understand it, let me read the question first before reading out loud. Okay, so this question is about the link between contact and feeling. Okay, as the javana process occurs before registration at the mind door, where, as I understand it, it arrives with the feeling tone already established. That means the feeling tone in the javana process, correct? Okay. How does the practitioner keep that feeling tone, the feeling tone, I guess, of the javana process from generating craving in the next process? Is there any particular link where one could obtain the most progress in insight knowledge? Okay, so the javana process already represents a kind of karmically active response to the object. But I think in most cases, because of the influence of habitual tendencies, so this initial response in the early javana processes in the sense door and probably the early stages of the mind door is occurring almost automatically through the weight of the influence of past tendencies. But at a certain point, looking at it from the links of dependent origination, one will recognize clearly that the kind of feeling that has arisen. So there is a pleasant feeling has arisen in me, there has a painful feeling has arisen, a neutral feeling has arisen. Okay, then I'd say that it is with the recognition of the feeling and the identification of it as a feeling of a particular kind that one can prevent that feeling from triggering a further habitual response in the next phase of the process. And I'm not thinking here so much in terms of the Abhidhamma analysis of the cognitive process, but more in terms of our ordinary experience. From a practical standpoint, it's easier to work with. And so we have feelings arise, pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neutral feelings, and the habitual tendency is to rejoice in the pleasant feelings and then cling to them and to crave more of them and to cling intensification of them and then to push away, to reject or to try to demolish the painful feelings or just to settle in blandly into the neutral feelings. And so I say where the progress comes in, the essential step is in mindfully and with clear comprehension, identifying the feeling that has arisen and then drawing back from one's habitual reactions. And instead, particularly in the meditative situation, contemplating whatever feeling has arisen simply as a feeling as such. In fact, like this is the method of the contemplation of feeling in the Satipatthana system. When pleasant feeling arises, one knows a pleasant feeling has arisen, and then one just observes it as arising and passing away. When a painful feeling has arisen, again, one identifies it and observes that it arises and passes away. And then with a neutral feeling, one observes, one identifies a neutral feeling and observes, it is subject to arising and passing away. And so that, I would say, is the particular link where one obtains the most progress in insight meditation. Yeah, and you use the microphone.
So does every conscious thought come with a feeling tone already
Yeah,
established?
every citta has a feeling tone accompanying it. Yeah, there'll be. Yeah, but because in the Abhidhamma analysis of cittas, the cittas are said to go by, so quickly, thousands in the snap of a finger. So we can't clearly discern those individual feelings that occur in each individual citta, but rather what we have to do, especially through the practice of mindfulness, we become more and more sensitive to the feelings as they're occurring within the observable backdrop of our experience. And then we can identify those feelings and then put a brake on our habitual reactions to those feelings and sort of shift from a reactive way of dealing with those feelings to a more a response governed by mindfulness and clear comprehension. And that brings call it a detachment from the lure of pleasant feeling and from the jolt of unpleasant feeling. Okay, so that takes care of all of the written questions. Let me just take a quick look at these two that I put aside. Okay. Existence being called habitual tendencies or emotional habits or patterns of behavior. Yeah, this is something that I'm not familiar with. So you didn't mention that. I didn't mention because I'm not familiar with this way of describing maybe some philosopher has described existence in that way, but not the teaching of dependent origination. And birth as birth of action, again, maybe it's a term expression that people use, but it's not the expression used in explaining birth and the formula for dependent origination. Oh, and then science and evolution, okay. There's a suit, I have to say, okay, Buddhism doesn't have a scientific account of biological evolution as it was developed in science beginning in the 19th century. But the Buddha's cosmology speaks about world systems repeatedly arising, developing, dissolving, and disintegrating, and then again arising, developing, disintegrating, and vanishing. So this happens again and again. And of course, when the world system dissolves, all human beings and animals and other sentient beings in that world system perish from that world system, and they have to take rebirth in other realms of existence until this world system starts to re-evolve. And then there's an account of what happens when the world system develops again. In the Digha Nikaya, it's called the Aganya Sutta. I don't remember the number. It could be Sutta number 29, something like that, of the long discourses of the Buddha, which speaks about the beings coming from the other realm of existence. They come back to the earth as kind of spiritual beings in a spiritual body, and then gradually they become more and more attracted to the grosser types of pleasure. And when that happens, the body starts to solidify until they become human beings as we know them now. So it's maybe a legendary account with maybe some psychological meaning behind it. And we have to say it doesn't correspond to biological science. But it doesn't mean that we have to reject Buddhism because it doesn't have an account of Darwinian evolution. Okay, so how can Buddhism account for the arising of the human five aggregates in the context of evolution? And I don't know. In fact, this person mentions the Dalai Lama. I've been at some teachings with the Dalai Lama in which there's a long question and answer period, and people pass up the written questions. And when he gets a question that he can't answer, he doesn't hesitate to say, I don't know, next question. So if I don't know the answer, I won't hesitate to say, I don't know. Okay, we're going to have to end now. And yeah, I just want to give some words of appreciation and thanks just before we close. First, we have to mention Venerable Ji Shu, who has been the coordinator for this Abhidhamma retreat. And in this, she's been assisted by the other nuns, especially the abbess, Venerable Hong Jun, and her assistant, Venerable Chang Jun, and Venerable Deshio, is she here? She's not here. Okay, then I have to thank Venerable Subodha for coming and taking care of conducting the chanting and some of the meditation sessions. And then I have to mention the one who's been working extremely hard for these 4 or 5 days is Bo Wei Chang Bak. We actually worked together for several weeks going over the Abhidhamma material. She's been doing the translation into Chinese, so we had to make sure that she could get the exact, to get the exact Chinese translation of all of the terms. So she's put in like weeks of work going over the formidable Visuddhimagga, both in Pali and English and Chinese to get the terminology. Then we always have to mention Jason, who always handles all of the technical tasks. And so they're not with us right now in this room, but we can't forget the support staff, especially the cooks and the volunteers and the cleanup team in the kitchen who have been providing us with food all of these weeks. Okay, and
就是到此结束。但是我们还是要感谢你们抽出这么宝贵的时间来参加，也给自己一个热烈的掌声。
So this Abhidhamma retreat is officially over at this point. Thank you all so much for taking your precious time to come to this retreat. Please give yourself a round of applause for just taking the time.
还有我们最后我们要请班姐做一个总回向。
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so we do the final sharing of the merits. Okay, so when, during these 5 days, as we've been speaking on the Dhamma, hearing the Dhamma, doing meditation, doing vandana, devotional service, and so on, we generate a great mass of wholesome karma, punya karma, of the, hopefully, of the superior three-rooted type, conducive to rebirth in the higher realms with the capacity to realize the paths and fruits. And so we're going to share these merits with the Dhamma protecting deities, with the fierce spirits that protect the Dhamma, with the Naga spirits, and with all beings. So I'll do the recitation of the verses in Pali, and you in your minds, you with loving kindness, you spread the light of the merits over the world. And so also aspiring that there will be peace, harmony, social justice, and ecological sustainability in this world. Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Sasanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Desanam Akasata Jabumata Deva Naga Mahidika Punyantang Anumoditva Chirang Rakantu Mang Parang Etavatacham Hehi Sampadang Punya Sampadang Sabbe Deva Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya Sabbe Bhuta Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya Sabbe Sata Anumodantu Sabba Sampati Siddhya Bhavagupadaya Vichihetato Etantare Satakayupapanna Rupya Rupicha Asanya Sanino Dukkha Pamuchantu Pusantu Nibuting. Okay, and then we stand and then we do 3 concluding bows.
我们这个阿毗达摩就是到这个圆满的结束，谢谢大家。但是接下来请你们